Respect fam, this is the minister's Red Pill Diaries. I'm the interfaith minister, Nka'la'a the initiator of the Ministry of Spiritology and director of the Association for Cultural Awareness. We're just going to dive right into this particular session of our Red Pill Diaries, and we're going to be talking about the 5 pillars of compatibility. And we actually want to bring out this topic because a lot of individuals have approached me since we sent out our recent flyer notifying the general public of some of the activities our ministry conducted. And even before that, I had been doing essentially what we call red pill marriage and relationship coaching for individuals in our African ministry participatory setup. So to just come out with some relationship marriage advice on how to strengthen your relationship, we want to start pointing out the 5 pillars of compatibility. And essentially, this is in an African context. So if you are maybe coming from a Western background, you might look at the perspective of thought to be, well, some people might say it's biased, but in the African context of reality, we African men and African women also are very aware that it is the African man who pays dowry and generally is given the traditional right of way to initiate relationships. So in establishing the 5 pillars of compatibility, we will be keeping that cultural perspective in mind. Now, number 1, the first pillar, and it's not in any particular ranking that I'm going to be giving these pillars, but just as they're going to flow. The first pillar that we do have to always keep in priority when establishing a relationship or looking for an individual who we want to take as a marital partner should be sexuality. Let's just be honest. Physical attraction is generally what draws 2 human beings, a male and a female, together. Now, if you're going to establish a relationship on the other pillars without looking at your sexuality first, that is going to be up to you. But generally, the person you're going to have a relationship with, the person who you're going to actually get married to, is someone who you're going to be seeing every single day. If you do get married to them, you're going to wake up to them every single day. And I'm not going to give you the societal standard of what beauty or attraction or proper sexuality is, but I do want you to recognize that if you don't find yourself sexually attracted to somebody, then getting into a relationship or deciding to marry them generally will not necessarily work out. It's important that you should always make sure that you have an attraction to that person. Number 2, the economics. It's important. Finances is not necessarily what we're talking about when we want to bring out the point of economics. We want to also add the idea of homekeeping, general grooming, being able to manage resources. Like we said, not just finances, but in essentially food resources, managing the home, cooking, the cleaning, finding resources, building up the environment. What type of car do you want to drive? What type of curtains do you want to have? These aspects, they're all important. How does somebody present themselves in their, should we say, household environment? How do they sustain it, essentially? How do they keep it neat? What are the particular things they like to bring in it? Are they more of an iron stainless steel person or like a wood grain type of person? You see, are you the type of person who, when you want to set up your bed, you're going to pay attention to whether it focuses on the cardinal points of the compass, or are you someone who, in your organization, you generally just go with the flow with your Shekinah? This is going to be very important when you're establishing your relationship with an individual who you want to date seriously, maybe date casually, or have a total marital relationship with it. If you get into incompatibility, in which you find that you have linked yourself with someone who maybe isn't regular with the laundry, keeps spaces unclean, the meals that you like to have, the person is not able to prepare them, those things are going to actually create some dichotomy between you, and it can affect your relationship. So you have to also keep the economics in mind when you're establishing your relationship. Now, number 3, and actually number 3, it could have been number 1 if we wanted to start it, but you need to pay attention to the psychology of the individual who you're going to try to have a relationship, get married to, or date, perhaps towards seeing if you want to even just have a serious relationship with them, or just have a casual relationship with them, which helps you to just keep yourself emotionally up, which is going to be the next pillar. But let's look at this idea of psychology, because if you don't get into a relationship with someone who you actually share intellectual ideas with, the things you like to talk about, Are you someone who likes to talk about cars and then you get into a relationship with someone who typically is just into, the Nigerian film, their fashion, their makeup and their hair? Are you a lady who is studious, is ambitious about education, but you're getting into a relationship with someone who is not focused on their education and just wants to maybe go out and hustle money, hang out with the boys and party? If you realize that your psychology, the way that you think, you don't share common grounds, then I'm going to tell you, ladies, gents, you're getting into very dangerous water, because after your sexuality, after economics, after the emotions, after everything that we're going to discuss as the 5 pillars of compatibility, you're going to want someone who you like to talk to. And if you don't actually share things in common that you can regularly discuss and talk about, then this is going to be the immediate breakdown of your relationship, because you're going to find out that you don't have what is called intellectual compatibility. So it's important that the psychology of the person does match your own. If it doesn't, even if you're sexually attracted to the person, sex when you're about 50, 60, 70 years old for marital couples is not going to be what's really the priority. It's going to be maybe along the lines of economics, spirituality, the psychology that we're talking about. But if you first don't have the foundation laid out for the psychology that you all can't discuss and meet common grounds, then you're digging yourself a very, very deep grave that you're going to fall into very quickly, and your relationship will collapse because of it. The 4th pillar, emotions. This is also extremely important. Emotional compatibility is another very, very important pillar in a relationship, because if you are actually in a relationship, whether dating, married, or serious with some type of commission towards going towards marriage, and you realize that you're someone who you get really emotional over things that make you sad, like watching a movie and, it's very romantic and you're seeing a breakup in it, and then you're with someone who isn't moved by things like that. If you're someone passes away in your immediate family or a close friend, and you see that the person who you've partnered with actually isn't quickly moved by the things that easily move you, you're going to find a lot of friction as your relationship is going to be evolving. If you're someone who is very deeply attached in romance and love, which affects the way that you hold on to friendships from prior relationships, and you get into a relationship with someone who easily is not attached because their emotions don't always take them back into the past, then you're going to find a lot of friction in your relationship. Now, there's some people who they can move like that. They can be like, oh, this is someone who I used to date and we're still just friends. And someone who has that type of emotional relationship that balances with that individual would quickly see that, because them too, they would also have 1 or 2 relationships with people who they were romantically involved in their past. So they can see the balance in it. It wouldn't be the friction. But if you're someone who your emotional compatibility is not balanced in these regards, and you know what emotions are: your sadness, your love, your happiness, your despair, angst, those things that make you feel bored, those things that make you feel depressed. If these things do not balance in the relationship that you're in, then you're going to have friction. You won't have a pillar that will be solid enough to maintain and keep that relationship stabilized. And after looking at the emotions now, we want to finally get to the 5th pillar, which is extremely important. And like I said, we didn't come with these in any particular order, though you could rank them according to their value, depending on what gives you your priority. I'm not giving them any priority according to my own preference either. But the 5th pillar is spirituality. And like I said, this could have even still been the first to me, but all of them are important as you're going to start to meditate and reflect on them, because you'll see that if you are not equally spiritually yoked to an individual who you find yourself in a romantic relationship with, then you're going to find a lot of friction and complications inside the relationships. And why am I saying this? Because automatically when we're born, we have particular religious backgrounds that we are born into. In the African context, some people are Islamic, some people are Christian, some people are of the African traditionalist. Then we have other different religions, Baha'i, that have come into the continent. The Jewish faith is also there. You've got Rastafarians, and then even the various denominations under these religions. Like Christians, you have Roman Catholics, you have Protestants. In the Protestants, you have Jehovah's Witnesses, you have the Baptists, the Presbyterians, you have Seventh-day Adventists, you have all these different groups. If you find yourself unequally spiritually yoked with an individual who you are romantically involved with, you're going to have complications in that relationship, because your religion, it deals with your soul. Your spiritual orientation deals with the way that you perceive reality and give your type of cosmological definition of why things are happening. Now, if you're in a relationship, let's say, with someone who is of the born-again Christian category, the Pentecostals, and they like to attach a lot of superstitious reasons to occurrences in their life, then you're going to find out that if you were, let's say, someone who is Rastafarian or Islamic, who is more rational in your perception of looking at things scientifically, you're going to look at this person at times as being childish to you. You might even reason them to be intellectually inferior or emotionally unstable. So you start to see that all of these pillars, they actually do have a genuine link to each other. But when you're not spiritually compatible with someone, when you don't have that equality in your spiritual orientation and outlook at life, then you're going to have a lot of conflict, because the way that you interpret reality is not going to be the same way that the other person interprets reality. And when you start to have children now, when you want to start planning how to use your finances, when you want to even plan your future, when you're considering how, let's say, if it's in a marital context, that you're going to be married to this person as they do sign the marital contract till death do us part. If you're a Muslim now and you've married a Christian, when you're going to pass away, what are going to be the particular funeral rites which will be used and observed to lay that individual to rest? You're automatically seeing there's going to be conflict that's going to actually now emerge from this incompatibility. So it's very important that you keep your spirituality in priority when you're seeking your relationship partners. And I want to bring the importance of this out. Why? Because we're talking about compatibility and the fact that we are seeing on the African continent, as the economics of the continent is evolving in its conflicted integration into Western imperialism and capitalism, we are seeing an alarming amount of relationships falling into divorce, difficulties even attaining marriage. A lot of women are complaining about marriage. A lot of men are complaining that they can't even find the proper marital partner. And I want to explain this to you, and explain with a simple reason why these difficulties are coming out. The compatibility. Your relationship, your marriage, your dating, your love, your romance is going to fail at the level of selection based on compatibility. So if you do not select the right person, you have already failed in the relationship that you have. You can make 2 years, 3 years, 4, 5, 6 months. Some people have immediate compatibility in 3 months. You see that they can even get married because the compatibility is there. Some people are married 20 years in incompatibility with 4 children, and they finally do separate, because all of this while they've actually been battling to sustain a relationship that right from the jump was not correct because you chose the wrong person. And I'll be honest, a lot of you right now are inside bad relationships because you're with people who you just should not have been with in the first place. And you need to start thinking about that. So it's important that you take these 5 pillars and write them down. Are you first spiritually compatible with the individual? Are you economically compatible with the individual? Are you psychologically compatible with the individual? Are you emotionally compatible with the individual? And finally, are you sexually compatible with the individual who you have taken into your life and decided that you want to see them in the light of feasibility of being a proper marriage partner for you, or a long-term relationship individual that you like to be with? When you put these 5 pillars down and you're dating them, when you're going out with them and you're discussing, even on your first date, you would find a way to ask questions to this individual to see if they rhyme with your reason and 5 compatible pillars. And if they don't have that compatibility, if they don't fit with your pillars, then I'm going to advise you, just don't let the relationship go further. Don't take it to the point where you can just think that you're managing and making it work because maybe their economics is down. You're a girl's with a guy who she's like, he's got money and he's got it made. His economics is good, but she's not psychologically linked to him. She's not emotionally compatible. And then after forcing herself into that relationship, oftentimes in our society now, getting married, she discovers 3, 4, 5 years down the road that she's not feeling this dude. And because of that economics or the sexuality, the relationship scatters. You start to find adultery. You find a lot of quarreling. You find a lot of domestic violence. Children get brought in who force the relationship to stay together, and it's general unhappiness. So that's what we want you to understand in this particular session of the Minister's Red Pill Diaries, how to actually have a sustainable relationship based on the 5 pillars of compatibility. If you liked this video and watched it to the end, I want you to make sure that you do hit the like button, subscribe, and make sure you share this video to other people to help them be able to sustain their relationship and improve on it. Maybe they're in a relationship right now that's going downhill. If they can look at these 5 pillars, it's possible they can rebuild it back up. But like I'm telling you, almost 8 out of 10 times, is just the wrong person in the first place. The pillars were never there to support the house up. So the house was never even built, though they thought it was. I want you to take that red pill knowledge, implicate it into your life, and improve on your relationships. And of course, make sure that even irrespective of, you do look at yourself as a decent human being and try to find the good in that other individual so that you can grow in one way or another. But if it's not possible, well, like we say, this is red pill knowledge. You just have to find your way out of that relationship so that the negativity that would be being bred between the two of you, it actually does cease to stop, and you can find the individual that you can build your relationship with properly on the solid 5 pillars. I've been your interfaith minister, Nka'la'a, signing out, telling you all finally, y'all just have some peace and stay blessed.